All right, so we've talked a lot this week about Oklahoma beating Texas and the impact that that's going to have on recruiting. And so today we got to talk about it because Oklahoma's got some commitments coming up, or at least you expect Oklahoma is going to win some of these commitments because Oklahoma has been winning some crystal balls. Yeah, you heard me right, from the master himself, Steve Wiltfong. And guys, before we dive into it, and before we talk about what's going on in this 2024 class for Oklahoma on the recruiting trail, and maybe get into some 2025 guys, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are around what BV and the staff is doing here in the 24 cycle. I know we ask you guys to do that a lot, but it's important. So make sure you go ahead, jump in the comments, and if you haven't already, the normal housekeeping, hit that like and hit that subscribe button. But the Oklahoma Sooners, listen, they have an opportunity to finish this 2024 class really strong. And there's a couple of prospects that, hey, you've received crystal balls on. At this point, you feel like they're a lock to Oklahoma. But then you're looking at Oklahoma and you're saying, are there any flips in our potential? And I think you've seen a lot of people focus in on Williams Nwaneri and Bryant Wesco. Bryant Wesco specifically because Clemson hasn't looked that good. And, you almost kind of wonder because he took one visit out to Clemson is Oklahoma still an option there since Oklahoma's playing well and Clemson's not, right? And he's been to Oklahoma a couple times and you felt like he was almost there anyways. Additionally, you are looking at Williams Nwaneri, but the problem is with Williams Nwaneri at this point is Missouri is 5-1. And you really question what is the rest of their schedule going to look like for them. If Missouri spurts off 7 or 8 wins, is that enough to keep Nwaneri and potentially land Wingo and flip McClellan from Ohio State and maybe even get Jayshon Ross? Like, I have no idea. But Missouri, I feel like, could put up their best class they've ever put up this year, depending on what kind of year they had. And we all thought at the beginning of the year that this was going to be the year where Drink got fired and Oklahoma was going to swoop in and take the number 1 player in the state of Kansas. So you look at Williams Nwaneri, you're not putting your bets on it. Bryant Wesco, again, I would not put my bet on it. But I think there's still a couple prospects where you look at it and go, hey, Oklahoma probably going to be somewhere in the 28, 29 commit range. And you really like what they have left on the board. And I think you got to start off with the 4-star offensive lineman that's gotten his Wiltfong crystal ball, Eddy Pierre. Yeah, you heard me right. The 6'3", 335-pound offensive lineman. You might be familiar with this kid because you saw his Twitter videos or whatever popping around that running track and literally outrunning dudes. I think he's going to be here on the 21st for the UCF game. So I would expect that you're probably going to hear of a commitment probably right after that. But he is a multi-sport athlete, right? So he does the track and field. He does the basketball along with the football. You really like what you see out of this kid, and it would add to just a really strong offensive line class for Oklahoma because you've already got a strong class. And then not to mention, you're expecting a commitment out of Daniel Akinkumi, the 6'4.5", 310-pound offensive lineman out of London, 3-star kid, but there's a lot of upside and potential there because the dude has not played football that long. So you land him and you land Eddy Pierre, you feel really good. You love where Bill Bedenbaugh has taken this offensive line class. But not to mention, Oklahoma, it feels like, should land Grant Brix, the composite top 65 player in the country out of Logan, Iowa. Yeah. This is one where you've been fighting Nebraska. You've been fighting K-State. Nebraska and K-State have not had the seasons that I think they thought they might have. And so you look at it and go, okay, you land Grant Brix, and this is probably became a stellar offensive line class. Definitely not, I think, what people were expecting at the beginning of the year. So moving out of the offensive line, you look at some of the secondary guys. You're looking at Devon Jordan, the 5'11.5", 168-pound cornerback out of Tulsa, Oklahoma. You're going up against Oklahoma State, Bama, TCU, A&M. I believe he just recently took a visit out to TCU and A&M, but Alabama's pushing for this kid. They want him. And so the question is, are you going to be able to beat out two SEC schools in Alabama and A&M? I don't really feel like you're going to have as much problem with Oklahoma State and TCU. But a kid being in-state out of the city of Tulsa, I feel like Oklahoma really wants to win this one just to increase their presence, right? I mean, increasing your presence in that city and being able to land a guy out of Union, I think that would be big. And then you look at Michael Boganowski. Yes, Michael Boganowski. Are you guys tired of hearing about this kid? Are you ready for this commitment to come? Because it looks like it's here. Michael Boganowski announced on Twitter the other day his top 4, and he announced the commitment date of October 19th. You're coming down between K-State, Kansas, the Kansas Jayhawks. Listen, they just landed their best recruit ever in this recruiting cycle. They are on their way up. But you have the Kansas Jayhawks, K-State, Florida State. You guys remember when we talked about Florida State being a team that could cause problems for Oklahoma in this recruitment? Well, apparently they're back. And then you've got Oklahoma, right? So you got the 4 right here, 2024. I think Rivals here has him as an athlete. I think some schools are recruiting him as a linebacker. Oklahoma's recruiting him as a safety. So, yeah, I just call him an athlete, whatever you want. But October 19th, 4 p.m. at the Junction City High School gym, Michael Boganowski will be making his commitment. And you saw the Wiltfong crystal ball come out for Michael Boganowski after that Texas win. And that was the momentum that Oklahoma fans were looking for after a potential Texas win. So, good news there. Oklahoma seems to be sitting pretty for a guy like Michael Boganowski. So we'll have to continue to watch this one and see how it progresses. But I'll tell you this. I've talked to a couple of sources, and it feels like this one's going to land in favor of Oklahoma. Now, last but not least, you got Reggie Powers, right? Reggie Powers going to be on campus for the University of Oklahoma here soon. And you expect that, hey, with you haven't probably 2 safeties already, maybe 3 committed by that time. With what you already have potentially returning, obviously the transfer portal's still there, but let's just assume everybody sticks. It's going to be hard. I think you really have to sell Reggie Powers on the idea that he can play cheetah, that he is the ideal cheetah representative for Brent Venables. And I feel like if you can sell him on that idea, yeah, it's not going to be easy. And it's not going to be just a home run win, but I definitely think Oklahoma can go out there and land Powers from the likes of maybe a UCLA or somebody like that. Now, a lot of people might have been asking, well, is Ohio State going to be in this recruitment? Because looking here at the 247 leaderboard, Ohio State, they've had a crystal ball. When you look at the visits that he took quite a few to Ohio State and Cincinnati. Obviously, being from Dayton, Ohio, you would expect the kid's going to, view some of those more local schools. I don't really feel like you're having to fight Ohio State here or Cincinnati. I feel like your biggest threat right here is going to be UCLA, where he's taken an official visit on October 28th, but the week before, he'll be taking it to Oklahoma on the 21st. You really, I feel like, want to get that nailed down before he takes that visit to UCLA. I just don't feel good about him leaving that visit on the 21st, not being committed. So we'll have to watch that one. CJ Jackson, the 4-star edge that decommitted from Georgia Tech. I said, hey, watch this one, because at one point, Oklahoma and CJ Jackson, they talked. It doesn't seem like it's going to be a thing. It doesn't seem like they're really pushing, but maybe if for some reason you feel like you were 100% out on Williams Nwaneri, maybe the staff goes to push on a couple different defensive line or edge prospects. I believe I've talked about the Emu. I believe his name's Emu kid that's currently committed to Stanford from Connecticut. That could be one guy that you look at on the defensive line. I do feel like the staff would want to take at least one more defensive line kid, regardless even if you don't get Williams Nwaneri, because you're kind of wanting to build for the future here. And I don't really feel like the 25 class is going to be really strong for Oklahoma on the defensive line. You've already got your commits in Kamori Moore. I like Ethan Utley. I like Xavier Ukponu, but I don't feel like you have that bona fide 5-star that you're going to be able to go out there and chase in the 2025 class. So obviously talking about the 25 class, I know there was a lot of questions about, hey, who were the silent commits? And we're still not going to break that news, but I'll tell you this, right? I really like where Oklahoma is standing in the recruitments of a Gus Cordavo. Now, he is 100% not silent committed, but I really like where Oklahoma sits in the standings for him. I like where Oklahoma is sitting for Landon Rink. We had an opportunity to follow up with him, and he was at Texas A&M during the OU Texas game. But listen, he definitely understood what was going on in that game and was paying attention. Additionally, Kobe Sellers. Kobe Sellers and I, we actually had a pretty lengthy conversation going into the weekend, into this week, talking about Oklahoma and Texas. And he said it was by far one of the best game environments he's been to. Both teams played great, but it sucks to see somebody lose. But he said OU's definitely really high on his list, and he's going to be back up here for a game soon. So that's encouraging for Oklahoma to hear. The 4-star safety, that's one that I feel like Oklahoma, they want to potentially land. So, guys, I want to hear from you, and I want to hear what y'all's thoughts are. If you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe button. Listen, recruiting is kind of starting to slow down a little bit for the 24 cycle, but we'll continue to follow up and see if Oklahoma starts to make any moves, maybe make some tides. I mean, listen, we're heading into decommit season, flip season for Oklahoma. I think some of these recruitments are going to go into signing day. Let's see if Oklahoma can try to go in there, make some pitches to people. You got in-home visits coming up. I definitely feel like they're going to be giving Williams on Airy one, so we'll find out. But guys, again, if you haven't already, make sure you go ahead and hit that like and hit that subscribe button.